This is going to be a really quick video. I just wanted to share something that I found dumpster diving. So if you're like me and you're, always on the lookout for a good deal, you're always on the lookout for corporate surplus and things other people are throwing away, I just thought I'd share something that you guys should be on the lookout for. Older fiber channel equipment. And I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but hear me out. So there are a lot of companies that are unloading older fiber channel gear in favor of buying new gear that's, iSCSI or Ethernet based. Fiber channel is an old, basically obsolete sort of kind of. There are some people in the audience who be like, no, it's not dead. It's just breathing funny. It's fine. But yeah, fiber channel over Ethernet maybe, but fiber channel as I'm talking about it in this context basically is dead. Fiber channel is available in 1, 2, 4, 8 gigabit connections. It's typically a fiber optic connection. It looks like SFP plus, but it's not. It'll usually say like FC4 or FC8 or 4GB or 8GB or something like that. So it's really easy to pick up enclosures, fiber channel enclosures, for practically nothing. Most fiber channel enclosures that are 4 gigabit will support up to 2 terabyte drives, and you may get lucky and you may find a fiber channel enclosure that will actually support 4 or 8 terabyte drives, but those are pretty rare. So I picked up a Xiotech 16 drive 1U enclosure with redundant power supplies. It has 4 gigabit fiber channel interfaces. This is actually a really good find for something like ZFS. So the deal with this enclosure is it doesn't do any kind of RAID. Most modern enclosures, EqualLogic enclosures or other type SANs, do the disk management and do the same, and they provide the software. And that's actually an Achilles heel for older hardware. So if you're doing a dumpster dive and it's like, oh my god, I found a PS6010. Okay, that's kind of cool. I mean, if it's got a 10 gig interface, okay, yeah, maybe. You're going to be limited to 2 terabyte drives, and it's going to export iSCSI. But you can actually get more performance out of something like this because we've got a total of 16 gigabits worth of fiber channel connections. You can also split the enclosure so that half the drives in this enclosure go to one machine and the other half of the drives go to another machine in terms of storage. So for things like video surveillance and ZFS, this kind of an enclosure is actually more attractive. It's something else a little bit more modern than fiber channel that you might find in the trash. Now, if you find 8 gigabit fiber channel, those things may have multiple channels as well. And so depending on the enclosure and how it's set up, you may be able to aggregate those as well. Fiber channel PCI Express cards are really cheap. They're typically 4 lane or 8 lane. For my particular setup with this, I got this enclosure. I configured it with 2 4 gigabit fiber channel interfaces, and I got it working with ZFS on Linux. Now, the other bad thing about this is that a lot of fiber channel controllers on FreeBSD are not really well supported. And so ZFS on Linux really comes to the rescue here because generally the fiber channel support on Linux is really good. And so with this particular enclosure, I was able to set it up. I was able to set up my RAID Z pool with some redundancy and that kind of thing. I can very easily pull 750 megabytes per second off of this enclosure, which is enough to almost saturate 10 gigabit Ethernet. That's really good considering that basically I pulled this thing from the dumpster. Now, if you take a look at it, in this particular case, I really lucked out because on the inside, there are fiber channel to SATA adapters. Sometimes it's impossible to find the trays. So if you find one of these and there's not really any trays with it, know that most of the time those trays have electronics, and so that's kind of a problem. One other thing worth mentioning is that a lot of enclosures like this, where it's got the 2 controllers on either side, it's really doing that more for redundancy than throughput. Now in my case, I've got 4 channels on each controller and 2 controllers. This gives the computer that's running the enclosure more than one physical path to get to the drives. And the other half of the more than one physical path to get to the drives also comes from this little circuit board. Sometimes this is called an interposer, or you might see this referred to as an interposer. But this little circuit board provides more than one physical connection to a SATA hard drive. So like if a controller conks out or the interface card conks out, the other interface card or the other controller can still find a path to the drive and it'll still work. Generally, the failover for that works really well on Linux. Generally, if you get it to work on FreeBSD, it doesn't really work all that great, although most of the time you'll have problems actually getting it working. So for me, for ZFS for Linux, this is a really good find. Now for this particular enclosure, I really lucked out. It had 16 1 terabyte drives in it already, and I was basically able to pick it up for nothing. So 16 terabytes, 4 gig interface, jump through a couple of hoops in terms of drivers and setup. I'm up and running with ZFS. This is really the best possible situation. Unlike with a lot of other things, I've got direct access to each physical disk, so setting it up with ZFS works great. With older stuff, where it's trying to be the controller, other enclosures maybe are trying to be the controller and trying to present all the drives as one logical volume. Generally, that software is not as advanced and not as cool as ZFS. So in this case, we're running ZFS, we're up and running. Hey, dumpster diving for the win. So I feel like I really lucked out. I also picked up a couple i5 2500s that were being surplused as well for almost nothing. So all in all, it was a good day. So there you have it, Confessions of a Dumpster Diver. I'm sort of curious, what your best dumpster dive finds have been, and I would really like to hear from you in the forums at techsyndicate.com. So, keep an eye out for this kind of equipment, and if you found something really cool in the dumpster, let us know at techsyndicate.com. I'm Wendell, I'm signing out, and I'll see you later.